How's it going, guys? Andrew here with G3D DC, and today I have a review for you of a very interesting knife. This is something that at the time of me filming this and putting it out, there's not really any content or at least reviews of this knife out yet. This really hadn't been talked about a whole lot until very recently, and the rollout on it was kind of behind the scenes up until very, very recently. So what I'm talking about is the Esee Avispa Automatic. This is a USA made version of the Esee Avispa, but instead of the manual frame lock that the original version is, it is a crossbar lock automatic. And instead of being produced overseas, it is produced in the USA. So we're going to get into everything here. I'll give you some more details, specs, size comparisons, use review, all that kind of stuff. But before we do that, we have to thank the sponsor of the channel, Auxiliary Manufacturing. Mike over at Auxiliary Manufacturing is making some awesome custom USA-made fixed blades like this Pocket Bowie or this Sumi. He just got back from Blade Show West, so if I had to guess, he's going to be putting the leftovers from that up on his site for sale very soon. I know he's working on another big drop that should be coming up here soon. I know he has a bunch of different variations of these Pocket Bowies with some different blade shapes. I know he's doing some with 1/8" blade stock, which a lot of people, including myself, have asked for. He's got some Pocket Bowie XLs. We've got a bunch of all of his models are going to be available very, very soon. I do have a discount code with him. Code Justified10 will get you 10% off your order on his website. So if you're interested in anything you see here or any of his other models, definitely go check him out. I will leave links down in the description to his Instagram, his website, and that discount code. And thank you to Mike, as always, for sponsoring the channel. So let's get into this here. So a little bit of history on this knife. If you are looking at this, if you're not familiar, I should say, if you're not familiar with the original Esee Avispa and its little brother, the Zancudo, you might be familiar with this design. But if you are familiar with the manual version of this knife, you may look at it and say that looks a whole lot like the Ontario Rat number 1 and 2. Well, that's because they're designed by the same people. The same people designed both of those knives. The Rat was for Ontario, who has now been sold, and I think they're probably I think those knives are probably one of the only good knives still being produced by Ontario, to be honest with you. And then for Esee, they designed the Avispa, which is the larger version, and the Zancudo, which is the smaller version. But recently, and I saw this, I'm trying to remember who posted it so I can give them credit. I believe it was Gideon's Tactical, if you're familiar with that channel. He's been around for a long time. He's one of the only knife review channels I still actually watch because he actually uses his knives and reviews them. But he posted on his community page a screenshot of like a pre-order on Blade HQ for this and the Zancudo. And these are USA-made automatic versions of the Avispa and the Zancudo. And he was the only person that I had seen talk about it. No retailers were talking about it. Esee wasn't posting about it. These are they're saying now that these are produced by Blue Ridge Knives. They hadn't posted anything about it. And then so, it was up for pre-order on Blade HQ. And then, it came they went live. There was no post announcement or anything. And I really hadn't seen anyone else talking about these. So, I'd put up on my, screenshotted a picture of them and put them up on my story and said, no one's talking about these. Are you guys interested in seeing a review for these? And a bunch of you guys voted that yes, you were, and you were more interested in the Avispa than the smaller Zancudo. So I said, I'll try to get an Avispa. Now, I do have to thank one person. You know who you are. I'm not going to, shout out because he's not really a knife account or anything. He just has a personal page on Instagram. But he's been a buddy of mine for a long time, big supporter of the channel, and he actually offered to buy this knife for me and send it over to have me review it, which was more than generous. So you know who you are. I appreciate you. Love you, bud. I hope you guys are doing well. He was affected by the hurricanes that are going on right now. So send some prayers his way. But thank you, bud, for sending this over. It really means a whole lot. But anyways, I got this over, and during the review process, another interesting thing that happened is that Knife Center on their new knives of the week. You know, they have a series on YouTube where they show off all the new knives that just come in for them to be selling. And they had the Avispa and Zancudo Auto, but this is in M390 steel, and theirs is in 14C28N. So as far as I know, the only place you can get this configuration with M390 is on Blade HQ, and the only other place that they're being sold is on Knife Center, but those are at a lower price point and with 14C28N steel. So I have no idea whether, you know, Esee just and Blue Ridge Knives just kind of fumbled the rollout on these, that, you know, they didn't tell enough people about them, or, you know, what their plan was with the whole thing. But the whole thing is very strange. And Blade HQ and Knife Center are the only place you can get these, as far as I'm aware, at the moment. So I'm going to go over specs, and just so I'm clear, again, I have the Blade HQ version here. And so the version that I'm talking about at the time of me filming and posting this video, the only place you can get this version of the knife is on Blade HQ. If you go to the Knife Center link, which I'll also link down below, it's going to be a different blade steel. So your specs here are, you have a full flat ground M390 blade. Your blade stock is just under an 1/8 inch. You have G10 handles, full steel liners, stainless steel pocket clip, crossbar lock, and an automatic action. Again, this was designed by Esee for Blue Ridge Knives. And, you know, I have been trying to figure out for a while, you know, who was actually manufacturing these. And I think, from what I understand, what I've read online, that Blue Ridge Knives is actually manufacturing these. I thought they were just a distributor, but apparently they do some manufacturing as well. And so, according to Knife Center's websites, these are being, quote, produced by Blue Ridge Knives, which leads me to believe that Blue Ridge is actually the one making them. There's no other information out there other than the fact that they are made in the USA, they're designed by Esee, and they're produced by Blue Ridge Knives. So I'm going to assume, for the time being, that Blue Ridge is making this. And I have to say, as someone who's never owned, knowingly at least, a knife produced by Blue Ridge, they really hit this out of the park if this is their first time doing an auto like this. It's really, really nice. Some other specs here. Your blade length is going to be, your overall blade length is 3.5 inches. Your cutting length is about 3 3/8. Your handle length here is coming in right at 5 inches. Your grip area inside here, not counting this area up here, is just over 4, about 4 1/4 inches. You can choke up on here, and get that kind of full 5-inch grip. Your handle thickness here is right at about 1/2 inch, maybe just a hair over. And that's about it for the specs. So let me pull out some size comparisons here before we talk about this more. Pull out some other folders here. This is the Zero Tolerance 0562 Ti. Right next to there. So actually, an overall length, the ZT is a big knife, and the Avispa is actually a little bit longer than that, and it's a little bit thicker. So this is a big knife. Do not be mistaken. The Avispa is quite a large knife. Here is the Spyderco Indela. This is the version, you know, between the Delica and the Endura, respectively, in size, in terms of size. Here is an Emerson Onyx. Here is a TRM Neutron 2, absolutely dwarfed by the Avispa. Here is a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. So again, in overall length, the Avispa is still a little bit longer than the Para 2. Obviously, it is much thicker, so if you're familiar with the thickness of a PM2, there is your difference. And then, actually, I'll leave this here. And then here is a Para 3. So there you can see the overall size difference. I will do some other knives here. I will do some traditionals, and I'll do some fixed blades and some multi-tools. I try to do a little bit of everything just because, you know, I don't know who's watching this channel, you know, if you're only familiar with one type of knife. Here is a standard full-size trapper. This one happens to be a K-bar, but any of your Case or Queen or any of those full-size trappers, they're all standard sizes. Here is a case small trapper. Here is a case mini copper lock. And let's see one more. Here is a case Barlow. So again, compared to your standard traditional knives, at least the smaller ones from Case, absolutely dwarfed. Some fixed blades here. Get some just common ones out here. Here's another Esee knife. Here is the Esee Azula 2. So overall, you can see there, the Esee is not or the Azula is not a huge knife. Absolutely dwarfed by the Avispa. Here is the Knives by Nuge Wicket, just the standard Wicket. And then while we're talking Knives by Nuge, let me grab the Wicket XL. Because again, very popular knife at the moment. So there it is between the XL and the standard Wicket. Put all these back. And then real quick, I'm just going to grab some multi-tools to do here. That way all your bases are covered. Here is a Victorinox hiker, so just your standard, I believe it's 91 millimeter is the standard size for these. Here is a Milwaukee Fastback, one with the driver. Here is your standard Milwaukee Fastback with just the blade. And then here is a Leatherman Wave and a Leatherman Skeletal, both in the closed position and then in the open position. Again, guys, if you're, I know some people get frustrated that I take so long with certain steps like this, but I think it's important. I leave timestamps down at the bottom of these videos, so you should be able to skip any of these parts that you're not interested in. If you just want to go right to the review, feel free to skip this. It's not going to hurt my feelings. What is going to piss me off is if you comment and complain about it, and then I have to tell you to go use the timestamps, which you should already be able to know how to do because you are an adult. So that is it for size comparisons. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of the size of this knife. I just wanted to give I just wanted to make sure that I was properly conveying the size of this knife because it is beefy. One other thing here I want to show on the specs end of things is the weight. This is a hefty knife. So get on the scale here, 5.4 ounces. In comparison, you know, a similarly sized knife, you know, the Para 2 or the PM2, whatever you want to call it, is 3.6 ounces. So it's a whole 2 ounces heavier than a PM2. Another one that was similar in size was the ZT. This is the 0562 Ti. That's pretty much the exact same weight. So a little bit thicker than the ZT, but about the same weight. So if you're familiar with some of the larger ZT knives, that's about the weight and the heft that you should expect with this knife. It is not a lightweight knife. And part of the reason for that, getting into the review now, is these are full steel liners. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see down inside there. Let me get my flashlight out here and show you. Those are full steel liners, and they are not skeletonized. Now, initially when I got this, I was like, you know, that's kind of annoying. You know, skeletonization on the steel liners like that is really nice for saving some weight, but I feel like this is more geared to a harder use, more of a work knife or outdoors folder, kind of like a camp utility knife. So the extra heft actually is nice when you're using it, and it feels very solid in hand. If you're going to be carrying this every day and you're looking for, a lightweight EDC knife, this is not going to be it. You could always look at the Zancudo, which is the smaller model of this. It's just a shrunken down version in every way, really. The handle shape is slightly different, but I believe that has full steel liners as well. So probably for the size, that's also going to be a little beefier. On that one, I'd say it definitely should probably have some milling out of those liners, some weight reduction, because it is a smaller EDC size knife, but this is a large knife. Now, one of the interesting things here is the steel choice. M390 on, again, what, seems to be built to be more of a harder use, outdoors, work kind of style knife. M390 is a fantastic steel. It has a ton of edge retention, and it is fairly stainless as well. I have not had any issues with this rusting or anything like that. Like I said, I did take this camping. I've used it for food prep. I have not had any rusting issues. The edge retention was great. I did end up wearing the edge out, so I put my own edge on it, and it has been holding up fine since then. But M390 is not the toughest steel in the world. It is not a super chippy steel like some of your very, very high edge retention, high performance steels. But, especially when run at higher HRCs, it can get a little chippy. I have no idea what HRC they're running this at, so it's very possible it's a lower HRC. But, when I took it camping, I wanted to test out, how the edge stability would be, especially with that full flat grind. The full flat grind is great for slicing. This thing cuts like a dream, in terms of, food prep where you're getting through some stickier materials. It slices through that great. If you're breaking down cardboard, this is has great geometry for that. But I wanted to kind of torque on the edge a little bit to see how stable the edge was. And so I did some carving while I was camping and really kind of torqued that edge into the wood. And, a chippier steel might have chipped out the edge. And that did not happen. It did not chip out at all. In fact, the only time I got any chipping on this blade is when I was doing some more torture tests, or not really torture. I do drop tests on a lot of knives that I review. That I think, are going to be, used for work or outdoors or anything like that. You're going to drop your knife. It's going to get banged up. So it should be able to handle that. I did a ton of drop tests with this, and it held up great. It just got dinged up a little bit here. The paint is coming off of the pocket clip, stuff like that. G10 got rubbed in a little bit like that. But the only thing that, like, damage-wise happened, the auto action never opened when dropped or anything like that. But because of the nature of crossbar locks, you can kind of depress the blade like this a little bit. Now, when you're just doing that by hand, that is not, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this again. I'll bring out the light. But, let's see if we can get this down in here. Well, you're not going to be able to see it very well on camera. But when I do this, the edge of that blade is not hitting these barrel spacers here in the back. But when dropped like this, it kind of landed right here, and just the force of that kind of brute forced it up and smacked this barrel spacer right here, and I got a chip in the edge about right here. Now, it wasn't a bad chip. I was expecting it to be worse. It was just a little bit of a chip and one sharpening. I started on 320 grit stones. And, so I didn't completely reprofile the edge. I didn't change the edge angle or anything. But one sharpening starting at 320 grit, taking a bit of material off of there, it sharpened right out. And this was fairly easy to sharpen as well. So my guess is they ran the M390 a little bit softer to give it a little bit more durability, which is fine. It happens to work for this. And, if you want that extra edge retention, M390 is going to be great. Talking about the price of these is about $175. And I think that's fair for what you're getting here. A USA-made automatic knife with M390 with this kind of build quality. There are no QC issues in this. The pivot is solid. There's no blade play. There's no lock rock beyond just the little bit of wiggle that you get with every crossbar lock. But in terms of actual blade play, there's nothing. It is a four-way positionable pocket clip. You can carry this tip up or tip down, left or right hand, which is great because this is a completely ambidextrous knife. The crossbar lock can be operated with either hand. Ooh, if you don't smack your hand with it, it fires out great. It's not as strong of a fire as like a ProTech. It feels very similar to some of the Kershaw launch knives. But all that to be said, for the quality of the build here, M390 steel, G10, full liners, four-way reversible pocket clip, and made in the USA. I feel like $175, under that $200 mark is fairly respectable. It's not, a steal of a buy or anything, but I think it's very competitive with things like the Kershaw Launch Series. Now, that being said, I really like that they are also releasing these in 14C28N, especially if they're marketing these more as, harder use outdoors or work knives. 14C28N is not going to have the same amount of edge retention as M390, but it's going to be much tougher, and it is a stainless steel, and it is a cheaper steel, so it brings the price down. The 14C28N versions that are on Knife Center right now are sitting at right around $109, $110. So you save about $70, and you get a steel that I think is more suited to hard use and outdoors use. I would say, if depending on, getting towards the end of the review here, in terms of would I recommend this, absolutely. I think the 14C28N version is a better buy in terms of value. Just over $100 for a USA-made automatic knife is pretty much unheard of. Other than like some of the really tiny Kershaw launches, I think those are right around $100, and they might have gone up since I've been buying them. But for the price, I think both of these are respectable. It all depends on what you want. If you want more edge retention and you're going to use these more as an EDC knife, the M390 might be what you want to go with. That being said, they are very thick and they are very heavy. So that kind of lends them more to be more of a hard use outdoors kind of knife, which then I would say your better buy is definitely the 14C28N version. So all that to be said, this is a great knife. I absolutely recommend it. I think it's very cool to see more USA-made products in not necessarily the budget realm. I consider budget knives to be anything under $100. But that 14C28N version is getting pretty damn close, and I think this is very competitive even at the $175 mark for this kind of build quality and material. So again, thank you to my buddy on Instagram for sending this over. We're talking about what we want to do with this. He was going to let me keep it, and I was like, no, I'm definitely at least going to send it to you. But now that I know he's been affected by the hurricane and everything, I might try to put together some kind of raffle with some other gear so that we can get him some funds out of this. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know down in the comments if you've been interested in buying some raffle tickets or something like that. I'll probably do that on Instagram because YouTube hates raffles. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything I said in this video or about this knife, please leave them down in the comments. I will leave links to purchase this knife. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.